Good afternoon, and welcome to this time and place made sacred by your presence, where we gather to celebrate the life of Hal Smith, Jr., with joy and in gratitude, with sadness and in grief. It is our tradition in Unitarian Universalism to mark our sacred times together with the lighting of a chalice and words of invocation. Blessed are those who give meaning to our lives. Holy and precious is the example they leave behind. May our sorrows diminish as we recall their strength. May their wisdom protect us and help us to live. Today, as we remember Hal, may we bring forth transformation in ourselves, from grief to healing, from memory to wholeness. Now I will light another candle, a candle of memory and hope, which represents the light Hal brought to so many lives and this world. May this flame remind us of both our gratitude for life and the transience of it. May we all live the rest of our days knowing life's preciousness. In this time together, may we remember Hal, may we find strength in our faith and each other, and may we be reverent witnesses to the life that he led. We come into this time with a range of emotions, and this is a place where it's welcome to express them through tears, laughter, and words of remembrance. For this is a place where we hold both the joy of love and the pain of loss, all of which we will navigate together. Our grief is a holy thing. It is proof that another life touched ours in a profound way. It is the mark of love, the mark of connection, the mark of a life well lived. Penelope Lively wrote, "Grief stricken. Stricken is right. It is as though you had been felled, knocked to the ground, pitched out of life, and into something else." Now, the word grief comes from an old French word meaning to harm. We are harmed by the death of a loved one. It also comes from two Latin roots that mean heavy and to burden. The death of a loved one is a heavy burden. It is difficult to bear. Yet, grief is more. It has been called a spiritual vessel of great meaning. That is true, but it takes a very long time to understand the meaning of grief. It goes beyond whatever healing we experience, but moves us in the direction of wisdom. The death of a loved one can make life seem meaningless. It is the process of grief that restores meaning to life. It makes life meaningful. Slowly, we recognize how precious life is and how precious love is. Through grief, the scales slowly shift again, and what we have lost is balanced by what we had: this person, this love, this life. The vessel of grief is different for everyone and for each loss. It's been suggested that there are 30 different characteristics that affect the way we might grieve. Knowing this, we begin to understand how differently people may grieve their losses. The poet May Sarton pointed to this when she wrote, "There are some griefs so loud they could bring down the sky, and there are griefs so still, none knows how deep they lie.
Thank you for being here to celebrate the life of my father, Hal Smith. It means a lot to myself and my mother. First off, let me clarify why I call my father by his first name, Hal. The truth is, I don't know. It's something that I started when I was about 10 years old, and it just stuck. He is 100% my father, unless there is something that you're not telling me, Mom. In reflection on Hal's 85 years, it's hard to boil down what qualities made Hal Hal. There are so many things. But here are the 3 qualities that I remember most about him. First of all, I remember his sense of humor and how he enjoyed getting people to laugh. I know that from an early age, he was a practical joker, and I'm sure you know that too. He used to tell me about the pranks he played in school, and I concluded that he was one of those class comedians who got a rush out of getting his fellow students to laugh. At the same time, though, he was a talented student. Those of you who are teachers or in the teaching profession know these highly capable students who give teachers a hard time but excel academically. Hal was one of those. Hal's mother was a teacher too, and I can only imagine some of the dinner conversations that happened after he was busted for pulling a prank. But it wasn't just physical comedy that he was good at. Hal had a great verbal wit that he deployed at home and in social gatherings. I remember him when I was really young reading Mark Twain's The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County out loud to me and making me laugh uproariously with his accents. Family get-togethers with the in-laws were always a hoot because Hal's humor frequently was matched by my uncles, Uncle Marshall and Uncle Kenny, and Grandpa Davis. On one occasion, I remember when Uncle Marshall graduated from the University of North Carolina, he wasn't able to go to the official commencement ceremony. So Mom and Hal did the next best thing. They gave him a commencement ceremony at home, complete with, I think, shower curtain, robe and cap and gown. And Hal was the commencement speaker, delivering a not-so-serious commencement address that had everyone in stitches. On another occasion, Hal was replacing some toilet seats in the house, being the handyman that he is. And being the frugal person that he is, it's a Smith family genetic thing, apparently, he thought a toilet seat would make a great gift, but not before doing some work on it. So after cutting a toilet seat in half, he gave it to Uncle Marshall with a message, forgive me, for my half-assed brother-in-law. Yes, on occasion, his humor could get a little risque, but that was part of his charm. While at Furman, I remember Hal having to warn Hal to keep his humor in check whenever I brought my dates by the house. Most of the time, sometimes the warning worked. Most of the time it did not, despite glaring in his direction, but my companions seemed to enjoy it anyway. The second thing I remember about Hal is him being a great teacher and role model. One of the things that continues to amaze me about Hal was his ability to retain composure and calm under all circumstances. I don't ever remember him losing his temper or freaking out about a problem. Instead, he would focus on the solution, just like a capable engineer and Georgia Tech graduate should. I, on the other hand, am not so dispassionate about solving problems, and as a teen and even as an adult, I would sometimes gripe and moan about some issue or problem I was having, and Hal, he would sit there listening for a while, and he would eventually use this line: "Do you want to complain, or do you want to solve the problem?" After some more griping, I would usually and begrudgingly settle down and listen to what he had to say and resolve the issue. Being supremely calm, that was part of Hal's style. That's not to say Hal didn't have his pet peeves. Rapid changes in computer technology were not necessarily appreciated by a pocket protector wearing, slide rule owning, and mechanical pencil type of guy. And I would frequently get tech support requests that would give even the most seasoned IT support person a run for their money, especially if I had been the one who installed the technology in the first place. Another trait that Hal demonstrated, and he tried to teach me at least, was organizational and planning skills. The other week, I went into his desk looking for some paper clips, and I was met with an engineer's dream. Regular pencils, mechanical pencils, paper clips, thumbtacks, rubber bands, and rulers, all neatly divided and separated into labeled plastic bins. Again, Georgia Tech. A place for everything, and everything is in its place. Although we'll skip the one major exception of the garage. Those of you that have seen it know what I'm talking about. Perhaps most importantly, I remember the generosity and selflessness that Hal showed to everyone who knew him. From an early age, I remember Hal taking time to help others. It didn't matter the place or the time. If someone asked for help, Hal was there, even after a long day of work. I remember him patiently helping me with my math homework, and my math skills were not so good. I did not inherit the math gene, but Hal persisted, and he patiently worked with me, and I passed my math classes, lo and behold. He also made time to help me with my Pineward Derby cars for the Boy Scouts, my science fair projects, and he helped me build model airplanes on the weekend. He introduced me to life experience that would ultimately shape my future interests and my future employment. He sparked my interest in water sports by taking me on tubing trips on the Green River in Nantahala. He introduced me to flying, much to the dismay of my mom. Sorry, Mom. And he supported my wanderlust that I've had for such a long time, and he helped manage my house while I was away working overseas. Now, his generosity extended beyond the family home. He helped neighbors and friends with car repairs, home issues, filling out official paperwork. Hal did a lot of volunteer work for the UU Fellowship. I remember him working in the old fellowship building on Buste Avenue years ago, and later serving as treasurer. I remember him working at UU auctions with the famous Jim Yockey and participating in other events. But Hal's generosity wasn't limited to helping friends or church members. Starting around 1984, Hal and Mom started hosting international students from around the world. I remember their names: Benoit, Christophe, Hakan, Anne-Sophie, Yasmin, Marit, Dieter, Bruno, Saigun, and Kelly. Some stayed for a summer, some stayed for a year, some stayed for 5 years. But all of them benefited from the time that Hal and Mom spent showing them around Greenville, showing them around Atlanta, taking them to museums, taking them to school events, taking them on the Nantahala River, and helping them with their homework. His generosity was truly worldwide. So, I want to give a heartfelt thanks to Hal for the years of laughter, love, and companionship and support that you have given to all who know you. Thank you.
A poem from John O'Donohue. Though we weep your loss, you dwell in that safe place in our hearts, where no storm or night or pain can reach you. Your love was like the dawn, brightening over our lives, awakening beneath the dark, a further adventure of color. The sound of your voice found for us a new music that brightened everything. Whatever you unfolded in your gaze quickened in the joy of its being. You placed smiles like flowers on the altar of the heart. Your mind always sparkled with wonder at things. Though your days here were brief, your spirit was alive, awake, complete. We look towards each other no longer from the old distance of our names. Now you dwell inside the rhythm of breath, as close to us as we are to ourselves. Though we cannot see you with outward eyes, we know our soul's gaze is upon your face, smiling back at us from within everything to which we bring our best refinement. Let us not look for you only in memory, where we would grow lonely without you. You would want us to find you in presence, beside us when beauty brightens, when kindness glows, and music echoes eternal tones. When orchids brighten the earth, darkest winter has turned to spring. May this dark grief flower with hope in every heart that loves you. May you continue to inspire us to enter each day with a generous heart, to serve the call of courage and love until we see your beautiful face again, in that land where there is no more separation, where all tears will be wiped from our mind, and where we will never lose you again. One of the most loving ways to remember someone is to tell stories and to share memories. I would like to invite those who would like to come forward and share a memory of Hal that you hold. Perhaps it's a short story of an experience you shared with him, or perhaps it's something he said or did that was significant to you. And if it's difficult for you to come up front to the microphone, I invite you to raise your hand, and I will happily bring it to you.
Hal Smith. Okay. Hal and Jennifer were the first people, pretty much the first people I met when I came to Greenville, South Carolina in 1976, a long time ago. Came to the fellowship. Hal and Charlie Smith were the Smith brothers. Hal actually played guitar back then, as I recall, even though as a woodworker he had lost part of his middle finger on the left hand, but he was able to play guitar anyway. He loved to, give the finger to somebody that annoyed him. And as Kevin mentioned, he was treasurer right before I was treasurer of the fellowship. They were both very active in the fellowship back in the day. So 35, 40 some odd years ago, Jim Yockey started some rafting trips on the Nantahala, and Hal and I got hooked. We did rafting trips on several different rivers, the Chattooga, what's one up in West Virginia? The Gauley River. We did road trips up to the Gauley River and did rafting trips. That's what some of those big water pictures were from. But mostly we went to Nantahala River and we rented from Brookside Campground. Admiral Hal gave his inimitable safety talk before we would go down and get another safety talk from the people at Brookside. Hal was also a kayaker. He and Ruth Albright got me into it, and I never looked back. That's how I met my husband, was after I became a kayaker. Hal was very active in the Foothills Paddling Club. He organized the rural practices at Westside Aquatic Center, and even though he never quite got his roll down, went to the Grand Canyon with us, went on several Grand Canyon trips, some with us and some with others. But back to kayaking, I remember one day on the Nantahala River, we went down on the very last Class 3 rapid, and Hal flipped over. We could see him struggling to get out of the boat, and we're chasing after him, trying to save him. He finally popped up, and when we went over to the side of the river and flipped his kayak over, his skirt was still on it. The man had no butt.
Hal Smith taught me how to captain a raft. I was terrified. I was sure I couldn't do it, but Hal sat in the back of the raft alongside me and helped me learn how to read the water, make the calls for paddle on the right, paddle on the left, all forward. And after a few of these trips, he said, "Okay, you're ready to do it now." But I was still terrified. I was afraid I'd kill somebody or drown somebody or at least bump them out of the raft. So he continued to ride along with me. And that kind of defeated the whole idea of increasing the number of captains for the growing number of people that were rafting. But anyway, finally one day, Hal made some calls that I didn't agree with. And I realized afterwards that was his way of telling me, "You're on your own now."
not easy, is it? I'm Glenn Rowley, and y'all know that Hal loved the Nantahala. It must have been, seems like 100 years ago, but it wasn't that long ago. Muriel and I put in the church auction a trip on the weekend with our camper, which we kept in the summer, at the Nantahala. He took the bid, and that was his first trip on the Nantahala.
I did not know Hal for many years at all, like a lot of you did. But you know, sometimes there's somebody, and a lot of us don't have very many people, that we want to avoid. We see them coming, and then we go the other way. Hal was right opposite. When you saw Hal, you wanted to be with him. And it was just something about him that made you happy. So that's it for Hal.
Hal was the first guy we saw at the UU Fellowship when Sandy and I moved here. And he told me after a few meetings with him about his middle finger. Tell me what happened. And I wondered, you know, why didn't you get it sewn back on or something with it? And he said they didn't find it until they smelled it in the garage. But he didn't really become a great friend of ours, Jennifer, until we were at your house one day, and you had a dog named Christabel. And you remember that? Christabel, you could be sitting on the sofa, Christabel would come straight for your crotch. And Hal would look at you and say, she knows we're all friends.
Hal had come to a party at our house one night, for what reason I don't remember, but he and I wound up in front of the microwave at the same time. And I asked him how microwave worked. So he told me in meticulous detail exactly how the electrons and the protons and the whatever worked in the microwave. And I turned it on, and it really did.
Do public speaking, so here we go. I met Hal. He was probably the first person that I ever paddled with from Foothills Paddling Club, actually. I was seeking out somebody to go kayaking through the week as I was working on weekends, and somebody told me about Hal. And he said, well, yes, we're going on Wednesday to the Nantahala. And I thought, he said, you can ride with me. And he was meeting someone else up there. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. You know, so we'll share gas money. And I thought, he was 20 years older than me, and my thought was, what am I going to talk to this person about for 2.5 hours? And as it turned out, we went. We got coffeeed up on the way. He had his thermos, he had his pocket protector, and he had his pen. And we go up to the nanny, and we paddle, and then by the time we had a couple of beers, we had become fast friends, of course, for the next 20-odd years, I guess. But I had known him for a very long time. But one of the funniest things I remember is he had the big white car, sort of grayish white. Yeah. So he had the big car, and We always went in that car a lot of places when we were paddling. That was his beastly mobile. I called it the Gray Ghost, and I'm not sure if someone else called it that or where it got the name. But one day on the lower green, someone must have been running shuttle, because he and I were both in the parking lot, and he's sitting on the tailgate. And all of a sudden, I heard this just whoosh, rain fall down. And the whole back window of this vehicle, he propped it up with a stick. So the whole back window had just shattered completely. It was, made of glass where it doesn't break, it just shatters in a billion pieces. And I looked at him, and he had the funniest look on his face, and I thought he had been hit in the head. But I said, "Are you okay?" And he says, "Oh yeah, I'm fine." I said, "It didn't hit you?" He said, "No, it just fell out." I mean, finally, he had had that thing so long, the whole back window just gave it up and just all over him. And so we spent the next 40 minutes laughing and picking up a bazillion pieces of glass out of the parking lot of the lower green. But I have many, many good memories of him, and occasionally we had even shared a birthday party or two, because our birthdays happened to be exactly 20 years apart, and his is on the 22nd, mine is on the 23rd. And I'm just thankful to have known him, and I will miss him very much.
Well, I'm another one of the folks that met Hal through rafting. And then I became a kayaker. And with a lot of help from Hal over the years, we became very good buddies, driving here and there, long conversations, a lot of pouring of coffee from his thermos into the other one. I was just trying to think of a time we were paddling, and it was my first time on the Gauley River, and I was so scared. But he made sure I got dressed correctly and had all the warm enough clothes on, and we're going down the river paddling, and I'm still really scared, but I've calmed down a little bit. Well, we got to this one point, and we got stuck in in between two rocks, and we started taking on water. And Hal was behind me, and I just said to him, "Hang on to me. My feet aren't on the boat anymore." And then moments later, I was gone. I was in the water, and the boat, because it didn't have many people in it anymore, went on through, and I came up on the other side, and there's Hal, white as a ghost, and just grabbing me up out of the raft. And it just was like a miracle to have this friend pull you up out of the water and help you. And that's how Hal was. He was a helper, always. And I must admit, I got that finger a lot.
Not sure how best to say this, but I'm involved in nonprofits and have worked with at-risk kids, and in talking with Hal, he was very interested in the things that I was doing, and it just struck me that Hal was not about impressing and making an impression. Hal was impressed by people and what was out there. And I think the lesson, maybe what we can do to keep Hal alive, is to look what's out there around us that is impressive and concentrate on that, and not to worry about ourselves that'll go along.
Well, luckily, by the grace of God, met Kevin at Furman. So I had a psycho roommate my freshman year. So yeah, it wasn't Kevin. So sophomore year, Kevin and I were roommates for 3 years, and of course I got to know his parents, and they welcomed me in. So I got to see Hal's generosity. But at first, meeting Hal, I had to get used to his dryness. It was kind of hard to read, and it's like, does he like me or not? But if you said something, you got that Hal laugh. It wasn't loud. It was just like, yeah, you got him amused, and that was just an honor to be a part of. Kind of looked at him as a second father. And I want to speak on his generosity as well. One time I was helping a friend with her car. I think I needed a special tool. I don't know how it worked. So it's when I was at Furman. And so I called up Hal. Luckily, he lived up the road, but he came by. I mean, it must have been 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And so I was glad to see him. Said, hey, Hal, I think this is what the problem is. Tell him all about it. He goes, I'll go up front. He starts getting underneath the car. The car starts to roll. Luckily, he didn't get too far. I got on braking time. He's like, Graham, it would really help if you left the car in park before I do this. I'm like, yeah, rookie mistake there. So also his graciousness along with his wife. One time Kevin came by my house, got a house, I don't know, 16 years ago, and I was cooking, and this stuff was just sticking to the skillets, and Kevin mentioned that to his parents. And about a month later, they bought me the nicest cooking set. I mean, this wasn't like that, what you buy at Walmart or anything like that. This was really high-end stuff. So just a generous man, and I was thinking about how the other day when I was working, I was having to put in new doors. Not with a new jamb, if anybody's done doors before, just the door itself, and I had to match the hinges up. But when I was working on it, it went so smoothly, notch out the new hinges and all that on the doors. Oh my God, everything lined up the first time. But I had a feeling that it was weird, kind of feeling that Hal was there watching over this and enjoying it. And I was appreciative because some of the stuff, just watching him work and things like that, I was able to use in my life. So we're going to miss you, Hal. So thanks for a lot of great rides on the Nantahala.
Well, it was really, I think this word is probably odd when Meredith emailed me about Hal's passing, because literally a day or two before, I was thinking about Kevin. Because I don't know if Kevin remembers that we live in the house his French teacher from Furman lived in. And every time I go in the downstairs bedroom, I think about that. And Kevin, I think, told me there was a pool table there years and years ago. But anyway, all of that is to say, I have such great memories of Hal. So the car was a GM station wagon that the Smiths took to Mexico on a road trip at some point. I remember Hal telling me that story, and when Hal and I and Meredith took kayaking lessons at the Nantahala, which was probably 1993, I think, just a few days ago, by the way, that car was already old, and I don't know how many miles he ultimately got on it, but he was a great guy. The other thing I was thinking about when I saw Bobo Ghani at the door was the Greenville Stock Club and what fun we had with the Stock Club. So I was the financial partner at some point, and Hal was the president, and we ultimately shut the club down in 2016, I think. But all of the stuff with the Stock Club Hal always came with a lot of kind of off-the-wall stocks, but well-researched, and always from a place of, what's the thing I see people want to buy? What's the things that people might be interested in? One of the things I really appreciated, of course, I'm also a chemical engineer, and I always appreciated someone who approached things through the same lens that I did when it came to figuring out problems. But he was just such a joy to know, and sitting down today and looking at this, I was like, oh my God, Kevin's only 3 years younger than I am. I've always thought of Kevin as being much younger than me. So anyway, all of that is to say that Hal is really, really going to be missed, and he really had a long impact on a lot of us.
The tears and smiles and laughter shared today are a sacred gift as we have dipped into this well of love and memory. May these memories shared, as well as those unspoken, nourish you and hold you in this day and always. Please join me in the responsive reading. It's called We Remember, and it's located on the inner right of the order of service. I will read the words in regular type. Please join in reading the words in italics as you wish. At the rising sun and at its going down, we remember him. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of the winter, we remember him. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember him. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we remember him. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of the autumn, we remember him. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember him. As long as we live, he too will live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember him. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember him. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember him. When we have joy we craved to share, we remember him. When we have achievements that are based on his, we remember him. For as long as we live, he too will live, for he is now a part of us, as we remember him. Before I extinguish the chalice and candle, marking the end of our service today, I'd like to share these words. We are each other's immortality. Each of us is a skein of lives stretching forward and backward in time, connecting everyone we have known, everyone they have known, and everyone who will come after us. We carry each other back from the threshold of life and death. Some part of those we loved is gone forever, but some part is ours to have and to hold and to make real in the world. So many have received so much love and care and light from Hal Smith. Take that light into your life and into the lives of all you encounter, and may you always be able to see that light as it is reflected in all of you. Dear ones, go in peace.